welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're opening up Boericke's Materia Medica again
We are.
and looking at Abrotanum, which is southernwood.
That's right, Southernwood. And our goal really is just to get a handle on its, key features, its traditional uses. It's always pretty interesting looking back at these older texts.
Yeah, it gives you real window into, well, how things were understood back then.
Exactly. And Abrotanum, it was linked to some very specific, almost peculiar conditions.
Okay, like what?
Well, things like marasmus,
That
that's
mean-
severe malnutrition or wasting, but specifically affecting the lower limbs, the legs, even when the person has a good appetite.
Oh, that's strange. Wasting away, but still hungry.
Precisely. Also, this idea of metastasis, not necessarily in the cancer sense we use today, but symptoms shifting around the body
Hmm.
and problems cropping up from suppressed conditions, especially if the person was prone to gout.
Right, suppression being a big theme.
It seems so. Then there's rheumatism appearing after diarrhea is checked or stopped.
So one problem stops, another starts.
Kind of. And even things like discomfort after chest surgery or nosebleeds and hydrocele, specifically in boys, and just general weakness after the flu. A real mix.
Okay, let's go back to that marasmus point. Wasting legs, good appetite. That just feels contradictory.
It really does. But what's striking is how specific Boericke is. It's not just general wasting, it's localized to the lower extremities.
Right.
Even though they're taking in food apparently quite well, it makes
Yeah.
you wonder, what kind of specific metabolic issue or blockage they were observing.
Yeah, what could cause that? And this idea of suppression, again, especially with gout, what's the thinking there?
Well, it seems to point to a view of the body needing to express imbalance somewhere.
Okay.
So if you stop one outlet, maybe like a skin rash or in this case, diarrhea, the idea was that the underlying issue might then manifest somewhere else.
Like rheumatism, or maybe making the gout worse.
Exactly. It suggests this interconnectedness that you can't just treat one symptom in isolation without potentially affecting something else. A very holistic, if different, perspective.
And that links to the rheumatism and diarrhea point too, doesn't it? One goes away, the other pops up.
It does. And Bowery even notes an inverse relationship with hemorrhoids sometimes, like the hemorrhoids get worse when the rheumatism gets better and vice versa.
Wow. That's quite a dynamic interplay they're describing.
It really is. It suggests the body is sort of juggling symptoms, perhaps, prioritizing different ways to deal with an underlying disturbance.
Fascinating. What about the mental picture and the sort of physical appearance?
Ah, yes. The text mentions a mental state of being cross, irritable, anxious, maybe depressed.
Okay.
But physically, the face is described as looking old, wrinkled, cold, pale, maybe with blue rings around the eyes, even comedones, like blackheads associated with the emaciation.
Despite the good appetite.
Despite the good appetite, that contrast again, and sometimes nosebleeds or even angioma on the face.
So a real disconnect between the desire for food and the physical manifestation of, well, seeming malnourishment and distress.
Exactly. It reinforces that idea that the problem isn't intake, it's somewhere further down the line. Processing, maybe. Assimilation.
Which brings us to the stomach and abdomen symptoms, I guess.
Right. Boericke mentions things like a slimy taste, or this really odd sensation of the stomach feeling like it's swimming in water, or just feeling cold.
Weird sensations.
Very specific. And again, confirms the good appetite, but maybe the food passes undigested. There's also mention of alternating diarrhea and constipation, and even feeling hard lumps in the abdomen.
So definitely digestive distress, even with the hunger.
Definitely. It paints a picture of significant internal upset.
And then circling back to the extremities, the legs are specifically mentioned as emaciated.
Yes, that's emphasized. Along with pains, shoulders, arms, wrists, ankles, and a general stiffness or lameness in the joints.
It keeps coming back to that localized wasting and joint issues.
It really does. It's a strong part of the remedy's identity in this text.
And finally, the modalities, what makes things better or worse?
Key things are worse from cold air, and worse from checked secretions again, that suppression idea,
Okay,
but better from motion. Movement seems to help.
right. So cold and suppressed things are bad, movement is good.
In a nutshell, yes, these were crucial differentiating factors.
So if we pull this all together, what are the absolute key takeaways for Abrotanum from Boericke?
I'd say it's that really distinctive combination. The marasmus, specifically of the legs, despite a good appetite, that's number one.
Okay.
Then this theme of metastasis or alternation of symptoms like rheumatism appearing after diarrhea stops, or the interplay with hemorrhoids.
That strange switching pattern.
Exactly. And the ill effects of suppression, particularly in gouty individuals, and maybe that mental state irritable, anxious alongside the contradictory physical signs.
It's quite a unique and very specific picture, isn't it?
It is, and what's really fascinating is thinking about how practitioners back then recognized these patterns, what underlying logic or theory connected these seemingly disparate symptoms for them.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what kind of illness process could actually produce all those specific things together.
It certainly does. Exploring these old texts really gives you a glimpse into, well, a different framework for understanding health and disease entirely. It definitely sparks curiosity about how medical thinking evolves.
And perhaps looking more into homeopathy's core ideas or other historical systems might offer some context for these connections.
Could be. It's a reminder that there have been many ways to try and map the complexities of the human body.